A few days ago, a former Kenyan president delivered a passionate speech which I will play for you later, about Trump's decision to cut aid in South Africa while I couldn't help but agree more with the African leader's point of view. Listen closely when I say this. Trump's decision wasn't merely about putting his own country first. It was, in part, influenced by Elon Musk's controversial views. Musk, a white South African-born entrepreneur, has long criticized South Africa's land reform policies. His outspoken comments have shaped the international narrative, serving as both an ideological influence and, arguably, an intimidation tactic. Now, here comes the clip.
Crying, oh, I don't know, Trump has removed money. He said he's not giving us any more money. Watu wanalia. Why are you crying? It's not your government, it's not your country. He has no reason to give you anything. I mean, hey, you don't pay taxes in America. He is appealing to his people. Shauri yenu bwana. This is a wake-up call for you to say, okay, what are we going to do to help ourselves?
Why South Africa?
It's only South Africa. Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
Elon Musk is a white South African that immigrated to the United States last year. He funded Trump $25 million for his election campaign, and that type of money comes with some perks, for example. After the election, Trump made him the new Department of Government Efficiency, and another perks is convincing the president, such as trying to try and intimidate other nations after its land was stolen from them, illegally through apartheid, in the cruelest way possible. Let me tell you all about it. Before the arrival of European settlers, the land of South Africa belonged to its indigenous people, thriving communities who lived in harmony with their environment. The Khoisan, Zulu, Xhosa, and other African groups had lived off the land for centuries, sustaining themselves through agriculture, hunting, and trade. Land was not just a commodity, it was an ancestral inheritance, a source of identity and sustenance. But then came the colonizers. The Dutch arrived in 1652 under the Dutch East India Company, and soon, what was meant to be a refueling station for European ships turned into an all-out land grab. As the Dutch expanded, indigenous communities were forced off their land through military conquests, enslavement, and legal manipulation. The British followed in the 1800s, expanding colonial rule and intensifying land dispossession. By 1913, the notorious Natives Land Act was passed, confining black South Africans to just 7% of the land, while the white minority, less than 10% of the population, claimed the rest. These policies laid the foundation for a deeply unjust economic system that would only worsen under apartheid. Apartheid was not just a policy of racial segregation. It was a system of economic and land theft. The white minority, making up less than 10% of the population, stole over 87% of the land, pushing black South Africans into poverty, townships, and forced labor. When apartheid became official state policy in 1948, racial segregation became the law of the land, and forced removals intensified. Black South Africans were forcibly relocated to overcrowded Bantustans, while white farmers expanded their commercial agricultural holdings on the best lands. For generations, black communities worked as laborers on land that once belonged to their ancestors, while poverty and inequality deepened. The fall of apartheid in 1994, symbolized by Nelson Mandela's inauguration, marked a long-awaited political liberation. For many South Africans, this historic moment was the beginning of a new chapter, one where the wounds of the past might eventually be healed. However, the promise of freedom was tempered by the realities of an economic system that remained heavily skewed. The willing buyer, willing seller approach, introduced as a voluntary mechanism for land transfer, has advanced only slowly. Today, white landowners still control roughly 72% of commercial farmland, and less than 10% of land has been redistributed to black South Africans. The dream of land ownership, and with it, a restoration of cultural identity and economic stability, remains out of reach for millions. Decades later, the numbers tell a stark story. White landowners still control around 72% of commercial farmland. Less than 10% of land has been successfully transferred to black owners. Millions of black South Africans remain landless and trapped in poverty. The message is clear. Political freedom alone is not enough. Land is power, land is dignity, and land is justice. Today, South Africa stands at a crossroads. Land reform is no longer just a policy discussion. It is a matter of national urgency. As pressure mounts on the government to act, opposition is growing louder. In 2018, the South African Parliament debated a motion to amend Section 25 of the Constitution, allowing for land expropriation without compensation. The motion, spearheaded by the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, and supported by sections of the ruling African National Congress, ANC, ignited a nationwide debate. Many white landowners, right-wing media, and foreign investors reacted with alarm. Enter Elon Musk, South African-born billionaire, now an American citizen, who left his country long ago but has suddenly developed strong opinions about its land policies. Musk, along with Fox News and other right-wing commentators, has framed land reform as an attack on white farmers. They claim that taking land from white landowners will cripple the economy, lead to food shortages, and result in en masse violence. Some even compare South Africa's land reform efforts to Robert Mugabe's Zimbabwe, predicting disaster. However, the data tells a different story. The majority of black South Africans still struggle to own land, while large commercial farms, often owned by white families, continue to dominate agriculture. The question remains, why does justice for the majority provoke outrage from the wealthy elite? The South African government has promised that land reform will be done strategically and legally, ensuring that agricultural production is not disrupted. But the longer justice is delayed, the more tension builds among the landless black majority. And this is where Julius Malema and the EFF come in. Julius Malema, the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, has been one of the most vocal figures in the fight for land redistribution. His message is clear. We are not calling for violence. We are calling for justice. Our people have been patient for too long, waiting for what is rightfully theirs. The land belongs to all South Africans, not just a privileged few. Malema's radical stance has made him both a hero to the poor and a villain to the wealthy elite. Malema argues that true freedom is impossible without economic justice, and that means returning land to the people. His party proposes that all land be placed under state custodianship, allowing a fair redistribution, rather than private ownership that benefits only a select few. His critics argue that such policies could scare away investors and lead to economic instability. But Malema insists that without land justice, true reconciliation in South Africa is impossible. South Africa's land struggle is not unique. Around the world, colonial settlers have taken land by force, built systems of privilege, and then cried injustice when the rightful owners seek its return. Global parallels, from South Africa to Gaza. The title, A Gaza 2.0, is provocative yet illuminating. While the circumstances in South Africa and Gaza are not identical, both narratives share common themes of dispossession, marginalization, and the fight for cultural survival. In Gaza, generations have been uprooted by occupation and statelessness. In Latin America, indigenous communities continue to battle for control over resource-rich lands. Similarly, in Zimbabwe, the legacy of colonial land grabs still haunts modern society. These struggles remind us that when power and resources are concentrated in the hands of a few, resistance is not only inevitable, it is essential for the restoration of dignity and justice. South Africa to Palestine, from Zimbabwe to the Americas. History teaches us one thing: stolen land will always be reclaimed. Justice delayed is not justice denied. The land belongs to the people. No billionaire, no politician, and no foreign power can stop the course of history. The land will return to its rightful owners. Every seed sown, every acre reclaimed, is an act of resistance against a legacy of dispossession, a tribute to the enduring power of a people united in the fight for justice. The future of South Africa's land, therefore, is not predetermined by the past. It is written each day by those who dare to dream of a nation where the land belongs to its people, where reconciliation is built on justice, and where cultural heritage is honored as the foundation of a truly sustainable future.